episode of the Moody Gooners podcast. We're the unofficial Arsenal FC podcast that looks to give Gooners insightful and lively content with a twist. The mission is entertaining people and making a difference to mental health. Stick around later for our bold predictions. My name is Jason, and with me as usual is Paul. And in today's episode, we'll be dissecting the game from yesterday at Anfield, where Arsenal drew 2-2 with Liverpool. Paul and I actually watched the game together and lived every moment of this emotional roller coaster as it was. How are you feeling, Paul?
Yeah, I must admit I was all over the place watching the game. 1 minute I was kind of angry, next minute I was joyous, next minute I was up and all. It's the kind of game I think that just had all the emotions wrapped in, and I think by the end of it we were both just like imploring the referee to blow the full-time whistle. We just wanted it over with.
Absolutely.
But I think recording this in the aftermath would have been probably not a good idea, in just because it was just so much to unpick. So I think having a good night's sleep on it and coming at it with a bit of a cool head today, I feel a bit better. There's still elements of it that I'm a bit confused at, concerns, things I was happy with. So it's probably quite a lot. I think there's a lot going on in this game that was, different to the games we've had recently, which have been, us going out, playing our style, controlling games, winning, scoring goals, and this. I think you can read this game in a number of different ways. So let's just see how we get on. How are you feeling?
I don't know is the answer. I flip back and forth. I'm 1 minute I think to myself, do you know what? That getting a point at Anfield is no mean feat, and we should be, we should be pleased with how we played and how we performed. But then you think to yourself, well, hang on a minute, we were cruising 2-0 up, and then it all just completely switched in that one moment. And I don't want to put too much into it, but that one moment from Xhaka, where it sort of sparked everything, the whole game just went at that moment.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to differ in opinion when we get to that point, because yes, it did certainly G the crowd up, but I think at the end of the day, there's enough players on that pitch to get a hold of that situation, defend it, and I think looking at the media today, there's definitely been that lazy journalism aspects come through. Oh, it's Granit Xhaka again, that guy, when actually he's been doing some clever kind of shithousing a lot of the season. It's actually been working out really nicely for us, and you could even argue he had Trent riled up at the time a bit as well, and I know he went on to assist the goal, but he certainly didn't have a great game himself. So I think a lot's being made of that. I'm more looking at how could Arsenal have defended better and how we could have got up the pitch more second half, to be honest, as opposed to, I mean, let's just go from the beginning.
Let's start at the top and then, work our way through it all. So before the game, how were you feeling before the game?
I think the word I would probably say is confused for me, because they obviously felt, again, watching all the media narrative, the history that Liverpool have. I mean, they're a great club. There's obviously that kind of one side I was sort of feeling a bit nervous and sort of anxious because we've lost at Everton this season, we've lost at Man United this season. We still haven't really got that monkey off our back as far as beating teams in the Northwest is concerned away from home. But then I also looked at the other side. I thought, well, they're eighth in the table for a reason. They clearly aren't the team of a couple of years back. But then the flip side again is I heard that they had the third best record at home, and they had beaten obviously Liverpool 7-0 in their previous home fixture, and they've beat City 1-0 before the World Cup. So this is where you can probably argue that a point was good in the end, because we've got a point that Man City and Man United haven't got. But so I would say confused. I think there was definitely ways that you could look at this game and go, well, we're the top of the league team. We're playing the eighth team, down the table. We should be beating these lot. They're not the team involved. We just got to go and, own it and control it. But then there's that other thing of they are still quite good at home. They are Liverpool. There is that Anfield factor. And, it'd be interesting to see. I was more interested to see mentally how we approached the game than anything else, really. How about you?
Well, I was quietly optimistic. I mean, I was predicting a 3-1 win, and it was looking like it was going to go down that path, perhaps. But I was thinking, no, come on, we're where we are. We're top of the league. You don't get there out of luck. You get there out of merit. And I think that we've been. I mean, you touched on it then. Liverpool are where they are in the league because of their form. But yeah, so I was feeling quite optimistic. I was a bit nervous about the game, obviously, because of the kind of magnitude of the game it was. But I was all right with things. The thing that's in the back of my mind is City's form at the moment, because it's I mean, we went into this yesterday. They're looking quite ominous right now. They're like a machine. They're just steamrolling teams. 3, 4, 5, and it's. I just, that I guess that's making me nervous. Yeah, and so, going into the game, I was like, yeah, come on, we can do this. And if we pulled off that result yesterday, then I think we'd have probably gone on to win the league completely. I mean, I'm not going to get carried away here, but we're still in the hunt. But it makes things a little bit more trickier, given that we come away with a point. So what did you think? I mean, so far as predictions before the game, what were you thinking?
Predictions before the game. I mean,
I know it's a hard one.
Honestly, I really didn't know. I mean, the only thing I kind of remember saying before the game was that I think it's going to be Arsenal and Liverpool games tend to be quite high scoring, especially at Anfield in the last few years, where often we've scored a lot less than them, obviously, but they've generally been quite. Quite big games, and I thought there'd be plenty of goals in this one. I'd probably say 4 goals minimum is kind of where I was at. But I really thought it might be able to go either way, because I looked at Liverpool's home record and thought, they're not going to be a pushover at home. But then I also thought I could also identify in my mind ways that I thought that we would be able to hurt them, predominantly, down in their sort of, with obviously Trent inverting and pushing into midfield. And Martinelli, I definitely had an eye on him. Hence my bold prediction last week. And obviously Jesus, I was expecting, a bit from him, given that he's now scored a couple of goals and he looked physically really sharp leading into the game. So to answer your question, I don't know what my prediction was. To be honest, I didn't really have a prediction. I thought it'd be a bit of a nail biting, high scoring, slight basketball type game. I don't think it was really the basketball game that I thought it would be, but it didn't surprise me that it was quite a tension filled occasion with plenty of goals, to be honest. I think it definitely. So to answer your question, I couldn't predict the score, but actually when I look back, I'm kind of not surprised at the result, really. 4 goals, game of 2 halves, I think is kind of the main thing that I saw.
It's that cliche, isn't it? It definitely was. Game of 2 halves thing. It seemed to me that we just sort of forgot how to play in the second half. Just coming back to the lineups then, no surprises really, I don't think, from no. Kind of as expected. Maybe Trossard was maybe a little bit unfortunate to miss out. Form's been so good of late, but it's good to have that depth. I think the only thing that we were hoping for was Saliba to come back and be on the bench at least. There
was a bit of a whisper, I think, in the pre-match press conference. Arteta said that one player was going to come back really soon who's injured, but he wouldn't name the names. And I think it doesn't take a brain surgeon to think, well, El Nenny's out for the season, so's Tomiyasu, and the only one that's missing at the moment that we can really think of is Saliba. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in the next couple of weeks, to be honest, because there has been talk about him missing the game. But in terms of the team, I mean, I think Jesus scoring twice against Leeds and making that penalty for himself. I sort of expected him to come back in. So I would say there was absolutely easy. I think we could have both picked the team with our eyes closed, to be honest, and
absolutely.
And the players on the bench. A bit surprised Smith Rowe didn't get a look in. But I guess the game state in the second half when we were under the pump probably could see why Arteta wanted to try and see out the point towards the end. But it would have been nice to have a bit more of an outlet with a bit of pace on. I'm probably jumping ahead a bit here, but I was quite surprised Smith Rowe didn't get on. But yeah, in terms of the team and the bench, could have picked it myself. Would have loved to see Saliba back. I'm still hopeful he will be, but obviously, there's not much information about that anywhere you go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. On the Smith Rowe thing, I think it's just he's been really unfortunate with the way that things have fallen for him this season. If you remember last season, he was doing great. He was in and out. He was getting goals. He was an integral part of what we were doing last year. And then obviously he picked up that injury.
Yeah.
I think, was it pre-season or within the first week or so, or first couple of weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think yeah. And then I think it was apparently a long-standing injury. He'd had this sort of problem. I think it was his groin or something like that. And I think he's a victim really of the position our season's in. I think if we'd perhaps taken the knockout competitions a bit more seriously, there'd be a bit more game time for him now. But obviously he's come into a team now with, the last 8 or 9 games of the season going for the title. It's almost a bit of a risk to start him at the moment because, in terms of his ability to get up to speed, obviously there's a real player in there. I mean, I think he's going to have a good season next season. I'm really confident now with this surgery that he's had that he's going to finally rid himself of that. But I just think the position we're in at the moment, fighting just for one trophy, means that there's not really a lot of room to get him on unless you're winning. We saw him come off the bench when we're winning 3 and 4-0 against 3 and 4, 3-1 and 4-1 against Palace and Leeds and teams like that. But I think in a game like this, I don't really necessarily blame Arteta for not bringing him on, but I think obviously when the game gets stretched, you'd probably argue more that Smith Rowe could maybe come on more than someone like Trossard, just that little bit of pace and ability to carry the ball, and with a bit of pace and menace and sort of get Liverpool going on the back foot. But to be honest, I didn't think we'd be talking about Smith Rowe this early in the podcast, to be honest. But but yeah, that's kind of where I am on him. I just think the state of Arsenal season is probably preventing him getting more minutes. But he's probably feeling a bit disillusioned at the moment. But I would think he'd definitely have a decent role to play next season. Hopefully with a full pre-season and no injury woes. I'm expecting big things next season. Him to kick on.
Agreed. I just think he's just a victim of circumstance. And unfortunately, there's no room for the sentimentality of bringing him in the current circumstances. No. We have to stick with what we've got, and what we've got is working. And the players that we've got are on form, and you just kind of have to. He just has to bide his time. So just moving ahead a little bit into the sort of first half. I mean, wow is what is kind of what I've written down for some of my notes to begin with. It was just the first period was just electrifying, breathtaking. We just seemed so self-assured. We didn't get caught up in the emotion of the occasion. It was just like, I could see it on their faces before the start of the game. I looked at it and I thought, yeah, these guys, they've turned up. They mean business. There's no sort of, they're just going to roll their sleeves up, get in, do the job, and get out with the 3 points.
Yeah. And if you could have predicted how this first half would have gone, or how we'd start the game, if in your ideal dreams, that's exactly how it would have been. Yeah. Plenty of control, plenty of bravery in terms of their passing, and the tempo's there. Playing the game as if they were just playing it on any stadium. Sorry, I cut in there, but
no, it's fine. Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt. Yeah, and obviously the first few minutes, Martinelli getting in behind, winning a corner. It was great. It was great. The initial, we really just went for the jugular straight from the off, which was great to see.
Yeah, and I think of late we've not been doing that in games. We've been a bit of a slow starter. If you think back, we've been caught out almost. We got caught out in the Bournemouth game. And then we almost got caught out against Leeds, This game, we just sort of, we seemed really sort of, we're just really efficient and just menacing. It was incredible to see that the mentality that they'd come out with. They just seemed so fearless and played with such authority. And then, we the goal, obviously not long after the kickoff. Lovely finish, lovely feet by Martinelli. Slight bit of luck, with the pass from Odegaard, getting the deflection off the defender and then coming into his feet. But fully deserved, fully merited. Liverpool hadn't even showed up at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, almost shades of Michael Thomas in 1989 about how he's kind of in the box. He's got Liverpool players around him, and I know the goal wasn't exactly the same, but he was waiting. He was almost waiting for for Alisson to blink. He was surrounded by Liverpool defenders, and it was just a very cool, calm little jab past the keeper. Obviously, a bit of luck how Van Dijk tried to clear it and deflect it and sort of passed it back into him. But yeah, your questions got to be asked by Liverpool fans around how Saka got the ball. He had the freedom of the Kop end half of the pitch, really, just to sort of just dribble in a straight line into it. There was no one. The midfield was anonymous. Robertson was just left behind. And we got a bit of luck with that deflection, but I really like the finish. I think in a game with that magnitude and that pressure, I think early stages of the game, still probably working your way into the rhythm of it all, and just to kind of be that cool and ice cold. I mean, that's probably the kind of thing as to why a lot of Arsenal fans think Martinelli could be a future number 9, or why people are comfortable for him filling in that position, because when he does get in front of goal at the moment, he's ice cold. And I read a stat somewhere. I think he's got 7 goals in his last 8 games as well. And he's also still pulling a few assists out here and there as well, as he did for the second goal. But he really is on form at the moment. I mean, Saka gets a lot of the headlines, and rightly so. But I think Martinelli is doing an absolutely brilliant job the last 6 to 8 weeks, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, he got dropped for the one game, and then Trossard came in, and then he's just sort of. I think that was just after he signed his contract, he got dropped.
Yeah.
and then after that, he's just come back and he's just hit the ground running, and he's just so industrious. He's just involved in everything. It's just brilliant to see him. The thirst that he's got to get at players, to run at them with the directness, is just wonderful to see. And then
he's our form player.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, not long after that, periods of sustained pressure from us. We're piling it, pushing them back. Their defense was just, I mean, they've just played as they've been playing all season, really. I thought, they just weren't there. They were non-existent. I remember one of the pundits at halftime at Sky Sports, what he said it was like, was it Roy Keane or something? He said schoolboy or something, wasn't it? Or pub team.
Yeah.
That was it. He
pub
said it
team
was defending. And that was Andy Robertson, I think it was, for the second goal for Gabriel Jesus to get that header. I mean, brilliant.
The only thing I'd say about the first half hour though is I don't know whether you agree or not, but I didn't feel like we created enough really clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities that our dominance. Like as a fan watching on, I could almost smell blood. I could sense that Liverpool were retreating. They were nervous. It would have been nice for us to have 1 or 2 clearer sights of their goal when we were on top. That's my only criticism, because I do remember a few times Liverpool hit us on the counter. I think Robertson went through and flashed the ball wide with his left foot when he should have probably been looking for the bottom corner. There's a few times where Salah got free in the box and hit the side netting and was a bit off it. So even at that point, there was a bit of me was thinking we still looked a little vulnerable on the counter, and I would have liked to. I can't really remember. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I can't really remember a really clear-cut opportunity to score, other than the actual goals. Obviously we were ruthless when we did get the chances, but I can't think of too many times where we had really good opportunities to score, with more when we're on top. That's my only criticism.
I hear you, and I agree with you to some extent, but we are playing away at Anfield, and we were 2-0 inside 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so
I get that.
And so I'm maybe we want too much, trying to be.
Maybe. I just think you don't get the opportunity to play at Anfield with Liverpool so on the back foot. I can't ever remember in all of my many years watching Arsenal, even from like the 90s, I can't remember many times we're at Anfield and you can really, like, if I was an Arsenal player on that pitch, I'd be smelling blood. I'd be wanting, I'd certainly be wanting to go in at halftime 2-0 up. But I do think it was one of those very, very rare opportunities where we could potentially even gone 3-0 up and gone in at 3-0 and no one would have batted an eyelid. Yeah. And it's not often so that's where I do have a slight regret, because it's very rare that Liverpool are looking unsure of themselves defensively, and I felt like we should really have stuck it on them. You know, there's obviously different game states and things like that, but at that particular time, you know, maybe we would have conceded, and we did concede, but I think maybe we could have even gone in at halftime 3-1 then. And, you know, 2-1, I think, obviously, I know we haven't got to the second goal yet in Liverpool's goal, but I feel like we went into the half-time where you could sense the momentum was going to shift for me second half, just purely because of the timing of their goal and the fact, you know, if you're a Liverpool player going in at half-time, you're thinking, phew, you know, that's actually not that bad for us. We're 2-1 down. And actually, you know, we're at home attacking the Kop. So I felt like by not putting them to the sword when we had the momentum, we actually, by consequence of that, we actually offered up a bit more encouragement, if anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think going in 2-0, I think that would have put a different complexion on the game entirely.
Yeah,
you know, and being 3-0 probably would have been maybe just about warranted. But you know, the whole game changed after the second goal.
Yeah. We had to go in at halftime with a 2-goal advantage, in my view.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a different second half if Liverpool come out with. I mean, it's still doable. We've seen them against Barcelona and other sides coming out, but I watched them about a month ago when they played against Real Madrid at Anfield, and that was one of those weird occasions where every time Real Madrid came forward, you could see Liverpool just. It's never see this from Liverpool, but they just wilting in front of your eyes. And I actually felt it was a similar opportunity in that first half for us to do what Real Madrid did to them at Anfield, where you just backer them and you just completely, you know, suck their spirit up to sound dramatic. But I feel like we did really well. Don't get me wrong, you know, we were controlled, we got 2 goals. But yeah, I do feel that we left a little bit out there in that first half. I mean, do we want to talk about the second goal? Because I mean, it was some people are criticising Trent and things like that, and I do think that, you know, he did. He probably, you know, was not aggressive enough to kind of shut Martinelli had basically time to put his head up and pick his spot, but it was a great delivery in. And I think, you know, again, the media are criticising the Liverpool defence, but I really like the position that Jesus picks out. You know, between Van Dijk and Robertson to execute the header. I just think it's really smart movement and positioning in the box, and that's, you know, he's really showing this kind of lethal instinct that he was lacking before. You know, with the goal he scored against Leeds from open play, and then this goal, it's that kind of lethal penalty box poacher thing that I don't think he showed that much of since he's joined us, to be honest. But what were your thoughts about the second goal?
Second goal, I mean, I think you have to, although the media hype it up the way that Liverpool defend, the facts speak for themselves. You know, it seemed very easy for Martinelli to get that ball in, and for Jesus to peel away off the back of Van Dijk and create that space, and then Robertson made a half-hearted attempt. You know, Liverpool are where they are based off the way that they're playing. You know, the league does not lie, and if you're going to defend like that, I mean, they have fallen off a cliff as a club. You know, you know, less than a year ago they were up for like winning everything, and now all of a sudden, you know, they're barely going to. Well, they're going to struggle to get into Europe at this rate. So it's that. Yeah, for me, the second goal, great ball from Xhaka over the top to Martinelli. It was just simple, and he had so much time to sort of bring it down, control it, shift it back inside a little bit, and then whip it in. I mean, I say whip it in. The cross was just a normal cross. I mean, it was very well delivered, but you know, there wasn't anything particularly outstanding about it. I thought it was very simple.
It was. That's. I mean, I think it was effortless, wasn't it? I mean, that's where the only area I would criticise Liverpool on is that Martinelli had that time to lift his head up and look exactly where Jesus was, rather than just like, you know, if someone was harrying him, that he would basically just not even have time to do that. He'd just kind of like cross it into an area and hope that someone was there. But as soon as you could see Martinelli lift his head, then you knew that all he had to do was put it on a sixpence for him. And I think he executed the header well. You know, nodded it down into the ground, and you know, we're flying at that point.
I didn't have him down as being able to get so many headed goals. He's got a fair few for us now. You know.
Yeah, he scored against Brentford, didn't he, as well, with the Xhaka cross in, and he's good. He's
all right.
He's,
didn't have him down.
Yeah, he's not. His technique's good. He's got quite a strong neck, doesn't he? That sounds a bit weird, but he's not someone that's going to leap like a salmon. But when he does get in the right, he takes up in sort of intelligent positions in the box. But when he does get it, he's got a really strong neck muscle to be able to. I remember the goal against Brentford. The ball was kind of a little bit behind him, and he was able to kind of like turn his head and still find the far corner. So it did look like it went in a little bit without huge amounts of power, but I think heading it down into the ground was a smart thing. I think goalies always struggle
as well. I don't think he needed to do much. The cross did it all pretty much for him, and Alisson's well beaten at that point. Defenders were nowhere at that point. So for me, I just fabulous, brilliant, simple, efficient goal, I loved it. I just at that point I was all in. I thought, oh, here we go. This is unbelievable. We're actually going to do this now. We're going to actually win away at Anfield. I thought it was done. I thought that was going to be it. Then I thought we were going to go on 4-1 or something. It
was almost too easy to be true, wasn't it? And so it proved. I mean, are you ready for an argument? Because I am.
Well, okay.
Should we argue about the?
Let's argue about the compelling event that happened. I think it was like 40 minutes or so, because everyone's like, "Oh, we had a good half hour or so." It was at 40 minutes when the incident happened where the game sort of changed tack. Now, it's not an argument because I agree with you, because Xhaka has done so much this season. He's mend bridges. He's done so much to sort of bring himself out of this sort of hole that he was in as a player, and the club and the fans put him into, and he dragged himself out, and I think Arteta deserves a lot of credit for that. But I think Xhaka deserves a lot of credit for that, because how many people would have stuck around after all that crap that he'd taken? So although this incident did evoke memories of the Xhaka of old, I think something else could have happened later in the game that would have had the same impact. So it's not that I'm blaming Xhaka for what happened and how the game panned out, but I just think he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to give.
There's been games this season where he's done. I actually can't remember exactly what happened when he did it, but when we beat Tottenham at their place at the Armitage Shanks, we were winning. Obviously, I think we were 2-0 up. There was about 10 minutes to go, and the ball dribbled out behind the goal. And I remember him kind of like picking the ball up and falling around. And all the Tottenham players are absolutely losing their minds. And Xhaka, I watched Xhaka's body language at the time, and all I can remember thinking was he's definitely on the right side of still remaining in control. And I felt like he managed that situation well, because it would have been easy if Spurs had gone up the other end and scored. Then people go, "Oh, Xhaka this, Xhaka that." But for me, it was the first time I'd seen him do something like that, where he was perfectly in control within himself. But the effect that it was having on the Spurs players was absolutely solid gold. And I mean, I didn't like it really when he put his head against Trent's head, but they were both kind of doing it. And Xhaka didn't actually motion to headbutt him at all. I felt like he still. And I think there's just a real laziness about the way it's all being reported on in the mainstream media today about, oh, Xhaka's, he's the reason. They're almost like saying he's the reason why we didn't win the game. But, he's done that outside Liverpool's defensive penalty area. The goal's gone in right at the other end of the field. I'd rather, it made the crowd get all excited. But there's so much football to play from that point. I don't think it's had a material. I think if any other player had done that, no one would even. If Ben White had squared up to Trent or Zinchenko or something like that, no one would have said anything. It's because it's Xhaka. It sort of carries, and the media need a narrative to hook onto. I'm more. I mean, I think with their first goal, I think it's a bit of a stroke of luck, really. I mean, how Henderson just throws his foot out, and sort of slides.
No, he sticks it out,
and he puts it into that. Here's another cliche for you, but the corridor of uncertainty, he puts it right into the area behind Gabriel, right at Salah's feet. And Gabriel does well to get,
he gets
a tackle on him, but he boots it in off Salah. But when you watch the replays, I mean, it's pure. This is where, you have to say maybe, we deserve to go in at halftime still 2-0 in my view, because, that Jordan Henderson. I'm not even going to call it a pass. It's an absolute abomination if you want to call it a pass, but it's gone exactly where Salah wants it, and he's never going to miss from there. And the timing of the goal, I think, would have led to quite a deflated dressing room, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched the jacket incident over and over, and so he gets fouled, which isn't given, and then he falls over from the foul that's not given, and then he's incensed, and he gets back up and he charges after the ball. And if I'm with you here, yeah, there would have been something else that have happened, or at some point in the game, I think Liverpool would have had spells and put us under pressure. I don't think, even as dominant as we were up until that point, but I just feel that he could maybe have kept his cool a little bit more, and then that may not have transpired, because it was only 2 minutes later that they scored from that. It was almost immediately after it. The players at that point were riled, and they wanted to prove a point, and they got lucky. They got lucky with their goal. Liverpool did. It was good build-up play down our right hand side. Ben White got caught out of position, I think it was, and the ball came in behind him. It's good build-up play, but yeah, Jordan Henderson, he didn't mean to do that, and they got very fortuitous with where the ball landed, and even Salah's momentum would have put that ball in. He didn't. He just had to just throw himself at it, really, because there was just no way that wasn't going to go in. So, yeah, I mean, when the goal went in, it was just like, it felt like a missed opportunity. It was like, because from then onwards, I just felt we were hanging on for dear life at that point. But
you're more of a glass half full guy than me, but you were very much, well, they've scored, but then we'll score again in second half.
Yeah,
I kind of understood where you were coming from there, but for me, that what was bad about that goal was the timing of it. It was the luckiness and the timing. The Arsenal players, I think, would have walked in at halftime almost feeling like, you almost need to go a goal ahead at Anfield for it to even get you onto, like, for it to be table stakes. Whereas 2-1 at half time is almost like it being 0-0 in my view, or 1-1, because we needed more. And I mean, the player. I hope the players weren't deflated at half time, because we're still leading. But the timing of the goal would have really pissed the players off. It would have pissed me off. And I mean, still no excuse, I think, for our second half performance. But what do you make about the Andy Robertson? With the hench lino, what was your view there?
I put that down as something to just sort of bring up. Yeah, so then obviously we clung on then to get to half time, because I think there was another chance after the goal where I think Henderson had that shank that went over the bar just before the half time. But then half time happened, and then the linos elbowed Andy Robertson in the throat. What do I make of it? A bit of both. What is Andy Robertson? He's going up to the linesman, grabbing his arm. He shouldn't. First of all, he shouldn't do that. But then, obviously, if you're an official, you can't then throw an arm up like that. I mean, I don't know. I've just never seen anything like it before. I mean,
I don't know. There's a bit of me that sort of thinks it's all a big storm in a teacup, because at the end of the day, he doesn't really crack him with his elbow in his jaw. Obviously, emotions are running high. But then there's another bit of me that says, it's almost a culmination of what's been happening in recent months, where players have been surrounding the referees. And I think the officials in football, compared to, cricket umpires and rugby referees and things like that, it's just a culmination of things. I mean, he shouldn't have thrown his arm out, but I don't think he was necessarily elbowing him. He was almost just trying to shake him off a bit. And I think, Robertson went up and made contact with him as well. So there's a bit of me that thinks it was just a bit soft all round. But it is a bit, for me, it's a bit of a sign of what football is like compared to other sports. There's not really that respect that flows both ways. It's a bit disappointing, but I do think, again, the media love a narrative, and people are probably going a little bit overboard. I think the big picture is we've got to start. The players need to respect the officials, and the officials have got to respect the players. There's got to be more of open dialogue between the two and a bit more transparency. That's where I'm at with it. But I don't think this incident, it wasn't like the famous Paolo Di Canio, Paul Alcock, staggered dive from 1997 or whenever it was, 98. But yeah, interesting. It's good to see the old officials fighting back, if you ask me, because the players, they really do go overboard, I think.
The PGO, is it PGMOL?
Yeah.
They'll just dust off one of their apology letters that they've been sending out to all these clubs who missed VAR problems and issues, and they'll just send a letter to Liverpool saying, "Oh, we're very sorry," basically. And then nothing.
Well, Brighton have got 3. Brighton should just forward the template back to
exactly.
to them for them to just copy and paste with
just
take up Liverpool FC.
Liverpool, yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I hear you. There is. On the officiating, I mean, we touched on this yesterday, that there's something not quite right at the moment. There's too much animosity between the clubs and the officials. It's just not working, and I think VAR has got a lot to answer for that.
Yeah.
Tempers are flared, and there's a lack of trust, I think, at the moment, and so that is naturally just going to boil over eventually, and I think that we're seeing this now. Players just don't trust the officials anymore. If the trust isn't there, then you can't. There's no foundation for which the game can be played upon. So something's got to happen, and there's got to be a proper review at the end of this season. Howard Webb has got a huge task at hand, I think, going forward.
I think to be fair though to Howard Webb, I think he's doing quite a good job. He's actually, whenever a mistake is made, I mean, I know it doesn't bring back the penalty Brighton should have had on the weekend and other things like that, but at least there's a bit more accountability. I like the fact that they are doing that, because it'd be very easy just to make mistakes and not own them. I think the fact there are errors being made, obviously we don't want that, but when they are being made, they're being owned and things like that. But I was quite surprised that incident happened, to be honest, because I think Paul Tierney is one of the worst refs going. I think he's a horrendous ref, but I hadn't really been any aggro in that half, to be honest. It was not really, it wasn't really a hard game to referee. It was obviously a very intense, big game, but it wasn't like I think there were 5 bookings in the first half, I heard, I think. And, but I didn't really recall many, knee breaking challenges come crashing in or anything like that. So, it was a bit of, it seemed like it was a bit crazy, really. So I think it sort of caught people unawares. What happened at the end of that half?
So second half, this is what it all sort of fell apart, really.
Do we have to? Should we just cut this now? 2-1 Arsenal, 3 points.
Yeah, if only.
Oh God! Right, let's take the medicine.
Yeah. All right. So second half starts in much the way the first half ended. Liverpool pushing us back, relentless pressure. They get a corner, and then ball pinged around a bit, and then there's a sort of 50-50 ball to be gone for, and then Holding, and in my opinion, rather unfortunately, puts his leg through the back of Jota, because Jota puts his leg in front of Holding as they're both reaching for the ball, and a penalty is given. I mean, do you think it was a penalty?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not a penalty. I mean, the thing that people can't seem to answer for me is, why does contact automatically seem to mean a foul? I mean, I don't even think Rob Holding motioned his thigh into the back of Jota's legs. For me, they were both their legs were both moving in the same direction as each other, and there was just one leg touched another leg. But there's going to be, particularly when there's been a corner, there's going to be people in the box, lots of bodies in there.
Yeah.
It's a physical contact sport. Jota, feels, a limb touching the back of his leg, and he just goes to ground. I mean, it's mad. I mean, in years gone by, I've actually seen people like Jota being booked for that, for feeling for a bit of contact and going down. It's a little bit clumsy by Holding, but he's in there. The ball's just dropped into the box. Lots of players around. For me, Holding doesn't push his leg out to try and block him or knock him. his leg is just running forward. It's just propelling forward. It just so happens his leg just touched the back of Jota's, and Jota feels it, and he's rolled the dice, Jota, and he's got lucky. I mean, it's an appalling. It's more of a tangle of legs, really, that Jota accentuated than anything else. I couldn't believe it when it was given.
I'm a little bit more on the fence. I mean, I've watched it back. It's extremely accidental and unfortunate, and I can also see the argument for it being given, but I can definitely see the argument for it not to be given as a pen. And I don't know. I just
ask yourself this: clear and obvious. Is it clear and obvious?
I flip it round, because if that was us and we were the attacking team, we'd have been screaming for a pen.
I wouldn't have expected a pen if it was the boot, but I'd be pleasantly surprised and pleasantly happy. And I'm not giving it back. Let's be clear about that. But if we'd won that penalty, I would have opened my eyes. My eyes would have fallen out of my skull and gone, "Oh wow, great, we've got a penalty." Yeah, brilliant. Because for me, it's not enough. It's not. And if it is going to go to VAR, which I don't believe it did, I think the referee just gave it in real time. But for me, it's not a clear and obvious penalty. It's, if they want to, I know the very idea of clear and obvious is subjective anyway to begin with, but it's not a penalty for me. It was just not enough in it. It was one of those ones that they're saying not enough in it. It wasn't like a clear thing where a player takes out another player. So but then obviously justice was done.
I think so.
With Salah, it was, to be fair, I think he chose his corner. He's getting a lot of stick for his penalty. It's a really firm hit. It's just it's the accuracy. He's not. It's not that far.
I think his runner far too wide. He sort of runs outwards and then comes in, and I'm not a big fan of left footers anyway taking penalties. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel. I always think they're just going to miss. I mean, unless it's Saka, obviously, but I didn't think it was a great penalty. I just thought, he could have. Rule number one with the penalty is hit the target, isn't it? That's what they say, And then after that, anything goes. It's a roll of the dice. There are some penalty takers that just they can hit the postage stamp, But he's missed. I think he's missed the last two penalties now. I think he has. So maybe time to hand it back. I think maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's a bad penalty taker. I just think it can happen, can't it? I mean, if that literally goes half a foot the other way, it's in off the post and looks absolutely glorious. Yeah. But people think the run-up's a thing, but then look at people like Ivan Toney. I know, bad example because he missed one over the weekend, but he's the best penalty taker out there, and he does one-step run-ups. You've got Jorginho, who's one of the best penalty takers out there. He does that kind of staggered thing. Jesus scored last week. I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, my overriding feeling off the back of it was that justice was well and truly done, and I just thought great. I didn't look at it for me as like, right, Liverpool are on top now, they're winning penalties, we're panicking. I looked at it as like a really soft, bit of a shonky decision, and I left the room when the penalty was taken. I heard you roaring. And suddenly we're back in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just on that as well, I did love that in the replays they showed that Klopp had his back to him because he couldn't watch.
Oh my god!
And then he was doing a little bit of a fist pump, and then he turned around. He was like, and then he was just in utter shock because he thought they'd score.
Yeah,
actually he'd missed.
I was surprised how long it took him to actually realise the penalty was missed. He fist pumped, did like a Michael Jackson sort of pivot, and then stood there for basically what looked like 2 or 3 seconds, and then got pissed off. It's like, are you? And then he looks a bit browbeaten by his current situation, shall we say? But yeah, it was that was a nice little bit of comedy there.
Yeah, but, nice little moment that was, I've got to say.
But let's be honest, despite that, the pressure was building. It was really starting to crank up.
Relentless then. It was just relentless. Yeah. I mean, we just went into our shell, and we just did not show up, and we were. It seemed a lot of players went missing. Like, I mean, we touched on it, like Saka. I mean, he was nowhere to be seen. Like the players that Odegaard as well. I mean, they just sort of retreated into the shell. They didn't know how to respond. It's like they'd forgotten what they were doing for the first 40 minutes. And the passing, they could only string about 4 passes together before they'd lost the ball, like loose passing, or it just felt weak. and just have an answer for it. And that maybe that's the atmosphere, the tension. It just got to us, the occasion. But after such a positive 40 minutes to begin with, I just thought, hang on a minute, guys, come on. There's been like a 20-minute, half an hour passage of play here that's gone past. Just regroup, just, ping it around at the back a little bit just to set yourselves up again. But we
couldn't seem to get, we were defending inside our own box, it felt like at that point.
Yeah.
I just wanted Arsenal to move up, try and get themselves up 10 or 15 yards and just, because I think it really shocked me this season, particularly because the one thing Arsenal always seem to have this season, and there's been times of the season where we've scored more goals than others, but the one thing that's been pretty much a consistent throughout the entire season is a level of ball retention, possession, and just generally controlling. I know it's hard at Anfield. I know it's one of the trickiest places to go, but we seem to really slip away from like just being able to kind of get hold of the bloody thing and just put some passes together, but just kind of get back into our shape. We normally play a bit more of a high line, but we were just retreating into our box, and it wasn't that we were just lumping the ball out and it was coming back at us. We weren't even able to really get our foot. There's another podcast that I like. I like to follow, called Clive Palmer, and he always talks about the tumble dryer or the washing machine, and I feel like we were going into the washing machine where things were spinning around. We were kind of getting a bit discombobulated. The ball was flying in and here, there, and everywhere. Chances were being created. Liverpool made 3 stubs. I think Nunez coming on made a big difference. Every time I've seen the guy play, I think once he starts adding a bit more regularity at goal scoring behind him, he's gonna be a good player, because he looked good when he came on, and I think even we were kind of talking about why are we making substitutions, and I've had a look back. We brought on our first subs after 80 minutes. I mean, it's way too late. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason behind it, but sometimes you've got to just mix it up, and you've got to respond almost to, like, Liverpool made subs after 61 minutes, and we've got 19 minutes there where the pressure is firmly now going back on us. And he's had 19 minutes, Arteta, there to see what Liverpool have done and respond to it, tactically. But we seem to just keep doing the same thing, which is the definition of madness. And the pressure, the Liverpool winning umpteen corners. Ramsdale, great save, 1-on-1 against Nunez.
That was after our subs. That was Kivior.
I know you were getting stuck into Kivior, but to me, like it was probably a tough game for him. I think I remarked as soon as he came on, he made a bit of a balls up in his first contribution. But I think this is a player that doesn't really get given a look in the Premier League. Even when we've been winning 4-1, 3-1, in my view, we probably should have given him a bit more game time in the lead up to this game. I think bringing him on at Anfield when we're 2-1 up and shit's really starting to go down and balls are flying around everywhere, and we're starting to really, it's cranking up. It's a tough. I would say it's probably slightly poor management of the player, and I also felt that it just invited. I mean, obviously at that point we're trying then to play for the win, try and play for the 2-1, but I didn't feel like we needed to bring on another defender. I just felt like maybe we needed something else in midfield, someone to just start to control the midfield again, because it was just coming at us in waves, to be honest.
Yeah, I was thinking, why take Zinchenko off, move him into midfield, bring Tierney on, so you've got that sort of natural sort of left, fullback there that's not looking to maraud inside, and then you've got that extra man from Zinchenko in the midfield who can sort of sit there and distribute, and he's got a good pass on him.
Yeah.
So, but then once Kivior comes on, you've set your stall out then at that point that you're clinging on. If you bring an extra centre back, we've been under the cosh for the whole game at that point.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously there's the direct chance from Nunez, a great save from Ramsdale. I mean, the last 10, 15 minutes, I say 10, 15 minutes because the game went up to like 95, 96 minutes. I mean, Ramsdale has basically kept us.
Oh my God.
I mean, no words to describe this guy and his performance.
Well, I mentioned it last week that why we're not talking about him enough, and obviously yesterday was like, the finest appearance that he's made all season. I mean, obviously he made that great save against Solanke against Bournemouth, save against Zaha. He saved one-on-ones. I think there was one against Leeds. He's been absolutely incredible. I think the first half of the season he was decent, but in the last month or so, 6 weeks, he's absolutely. Yeah, he's the reason why we even have a point. I mean, we all know this anyway, but he played brilliant. He just, we could have potentially lost that game 4-2, 5-2. He's absolutely brilliant on one-on-ones, agile, great reflexes. I mean, we had our chances. I mean, Arteta after the game was saying we had 3 chances, big chances. I didn't really see that we had lots of clear cut. For me, Liverpool had the better quality of chance, but there was one where Martinelli went down the wing again, and rather than cut the ball back for Trossard, who'd made the run to the near post, he tried to put it across the goal. Trossard made a great run. But other than that, I don't really. And then obviously we had that chance at the end where, some would say that it was a poor pass. I'm also inclined to think that Alisson's pretty good as a sweeper keeper, so his starting position is a bit more advanced. But I mean that was a great opportunity. But I think if it's any other goalkeeper in the Premier League other than Alisson, I think Saka's able to control that ball, and when we get a shot away. I've seen Alisson play a lot this season, and he's that very modern kind of sweeper keeper where he's just. Sure. When the counter attack's there, he's very brave. He's very decisive. He doesn't just stay inside the 6-yard box. He knows when to kind of play on the edge of the box. So I personally like to give credit to Alisson for that. But I think in any other scenario, Saka controls that and at least gets a shot away. But I don't feel like, again, when we did have the odd chance on the break, it was a bit too precise. It was a bit too precise for us to get. To get the chances away. But whereas Liverpool, for me, they were missing one-on-ones. Obviously, the Konate effort at the end. But how did you sort of take the end of that game? It was crazy, wasn't it?
It was mental. It was relentless. After the Nunez chance, a few minutes later they get their goal. Clever build-up play, nicely done from Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, this is what he's good at. He's getting the ball in and delivering. I mean, he megs Zinchenko, and I just hope that doesn't have a lasting effect on Zinchenko, because he looked like he was in tears, on the bench.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was quite surprised. I mean, I know it's an emotional game, but I was a bit saddened to see it, but also a little bit shocked, because if it's.
I hope it doesn't.
I
really don't.
Yeah, because it does make you think. Yeah, I'm now going to be looking at him probably closer against West Ham than I otherwise would have, because I'm going to be thinking. I know he's a very emotional guy. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on off the pitch with Ukraine and things like that. But yeah, when I saw him crying, I was obviously sad for him. But then I was also thinking, purely on a footballing level, it's not the time to cry. Is potentially if we were to lose the title on the last game of the season, then we'll all be crying our heads off. But for me, we were massively. That was the most pressure we've had against us by far in the last 10 minutes of a game this season, and we've walked away with a point. So for me, it's not really. I'm worried about because again, there's parallels to be drawn with William Gallas sulking on the pitch at Birmingham back in the day, and
I wouldn't quite go that far, but
I know, but it's like it's that sort of. I don't want to sound all old school, because obviously it should be normal for a man to cry and open up his heart. That's why we're doing this podcast. But there was a bit of me who's going, wow, that's quite a strong reaction. That makes me. I'm worried more about how is he going to carry that on him into the next games?
This is where Arteta's where his man management skills are going to be brought to the fore now, and he's going to have to rally the troops now. We'll touch on this now on how we see things. I mean, that goal went in. Firmino. I'll be glad when we see the back of him, because that guy. He can't stop scoring against us. I mean, he's hardly played this season, and he just pops up at the back post. I think Ben White can be held a little bit responsible. He didn't quite pick him up. There was nobody around Ben White, and before you knew it, Firmino had peeled away off the back, and he was just there to sort of tap. Get there.
Almost a parallel to be drawn with our second goal.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that the nutmeg was tough to take for Zinchenko, but the way Trent was able to pick out what was quite.
Yeah.
Again, he didn't have to whip the ball in or play a really awkward cross. He just hung the ball up, and I totally agree with you with with Arsenal's defending. There was no one there dueling for the ball, or at least trying to knock Firmino off his stride a bit, because it wasn't a straightforward header. It wasn't like he just had to stand there and just head it in. He had to jump a little bit off balance, and there's potentially an argument to say, well, if an Arsenal player had gone in and just nudged him a little bit in his lower half, even if the player couldn't jump and make a challenge for the ball, just something to maybe put him off his stride. But even if we conceded a penalty, I guess people would be going mad if we'd conceded another penalty, but better than giving someone a routine sort of header into an empty net. Yeah. And I feel sorry for Ramsdale as well, because he'd worked so hard at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, after that, he produced probably save of the season that I can remember. I mean, I can't, that we roll on a few minutes after that, after the goal. I think it was like 91, 92 or something. And then Salah gets that chance, and he actually gets a deflection as well.
Yeah, I think off Gabriel.
Off Gabriel gets the deflection, and it's going as much as you can put it in the top corner. And
it's beautiful. The agility.
It's phenomenal. I mean, we're going to sound really biased here and wax lyrical about it, but
oh no, let's wax away.
This guy is
wax on
worldy of a save.
It's world class.
I genuinely, I mean, there was that save last season, wasn't it? We said it yesterday. The Leicester one, was it last season or was
James Maddison? Yeah, the free kick.
The free kick. Shades of that. It was unbelievable.
Oh, beautiful.
And in that moment as well, under that pressure, I mean, this is why we love football, really, isn't it? For moments like this, you just sort of, phenomenal, incredible save, fingertip flicked away, just amazing. And then he does it again a few minutes later. Then with the Konate chance, he just keeps us in it. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument with that one to say that Konate should have headed the ball in. I kind of inclined to agree, but still, I think a lot of other goalkeepers in that situation probably would have given up the ghost a bit and thought, oh, well, I'll throw myself at it. But Ramsdale he's still got the wherewithal to actually kind of, push at the ball and make sure he's got two strong hands to try and stop that one crossing the line. And it's, brilliant. And as Roy Keane said after the game, that's the kind of thing that, if we win the league by a point, those are the kind of contributions we need from players. I mean, he goes a long time in games, Ramsdale, without even having to touch the ball, breaking a sweat. But he's been arguably our best player in the last month, particularly. I know goalies don't normally get that award, but
yeah, I'd say him. Martinelli, as you say at the beginning, at the start of the podcast, Martinelli, Trossard, I mean, Saka obviously, but he had a really quiet game yesterday. So
yeah,
obviously 2-2 final score. What were you feeling after the game?
After the game, I was upset actually, because I kind of, and I know every game is a game in isolation, and to get to the title ultimately, there's no point beating Liverpool to then lose to Southampton in a couple of weeks, for example. I get that, but I was really, I was sitting there after 35 minutes thinking, we win here, and we've then got a proof of concept to take. I felt before the game that you get a result at Anfield, we can then go to the Etihad and go, we've done it at Anfield, we can do it here. Whereas we don't quite, I don't think we've got that kind of now to be able to call upon. After the game, I felt, I mean, there's different ways you can look at it, I guess, but after the game, I thought game of two halves, as the cliche goes. But it looks like 2 points dropped. I think whenever you go 2-0 up and you're looking in such control, and all we had to do was game manage. I mean, they got lucky with their first goal, but then by the end of the game, you're sitting there thinking, well, is it a point gain? Because when you looked at the stats, I think Liverpool's XG was almost 4, and ours was 1 point something. So the quality of chances Liverpool, I actually think on balance, when I look at the entire game, I actually think Liverpool probably should have shaded it with the 3 points. So you probably could say it's a point gained, but then obviously when you're 2-0 up, it's 2 points dropped. So I'm still a bit confused now, if I'm completely honest with you. But I mean, I think we just have to see. I think after the game, it made me really just think, right, we need City to drop something elsewhere. I feel that they need to get a draw somewhere.
I agree with you. We're going to need them to drop something. I think also possibly going to need to get something out of the game at the Etihad. I don't think we can afford to lose that game.
No, I mean, there was, again, the lazy media narrative after the game is, it's in City's hands. No, it's not. It's actually in both teams' hands.
Yeah.
If Arsenal win all their games, we win the title. If City win all their games, they win the title. So it's just, it has moved the momentum. I think we were slight favourites before, say 55%. It's probably now moved to like more of a 51, 52% in favour of City, but that's still potentially 48%.
I mean, we'd have taken those odds. We'd have taken those odds at the beginning of the season, but it's just that it's painful that we're in this position that we're in now.
Yeah,
and it's so close. And yet,
if we were playing some lovely football and bubbling along nicely in second, and we were 10 points behind City in first, we wouldn't be. I think now that the stakes are so high that even if we did finish second, it would hurt. It would actually look like a failure of a season. And I know I said it yesterday. That's where I do look at. Getting the players in January does make me feel that we probably, we did have a bit of more strength in depth to put more of a shift in against Sporting, and then also, in the FA Cup as well. So, because I believe this team just deserves a trophy. I mean, if it's not the Premier League, it needed to have been the Europa League or the FA Cup or something.
Just ask Spurs if they can give us the Audi Cup or something,
I was just going to say, I mean, I draw the line at the Audi Cup, but or the most goal involvements in Premier League history between two players award. But yeah, it's one of those things. I really would feel gutted. I know you can argue that this is the start of something with Arsenal. Really, we're still in the earliest stages of this. So we will be better again next season, the season after. I get that, but when you've got the opportunity to strike, you've got to do it. It's like the first half. We smelt blood and we didn't quite get over the line. We didn't ram home the advantage, and that's kind of what I feel a little bit about our season. But at the end of the day, if we're going to beat City in the table, we've got to, we've lost them twice this season, so we've got to beat them. In my view, we've almost got to. I don't feel almost like we deserve the Premier League trophy if we win it on points but don't beat City, or at least get something against City. It's a bit embarrassing to lose our last 11 in a row.
I don't think we have to win. I think what we need to do is not lose, but that's a dangerous game to play. If you go there going for a draw, you're going to get beat. Countless times teams have been in this position where they go, as long as we don't lose, we're going to be all right, and then they just capitulate. And I just don't. If we maintain the gap, then I think we're all right. We can get away with it a bit, because I do think. I'm not going to, go along with everybody else saying that they're going to win every game, because that's a lot of games they've got to play. I looked at the fixture list side by side, and they've got to play a lot more games than us. I do think they're going to get through against Bayern, and then they've got 2 games against Real Madrid. Then probably, I can't see Chelsea getting past Real. And then, they're going to be up for that. That's their pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for them. That's what they want.
Yeah, I think on paper they probably don't lose a game in the Premier League the rest of the season. But yeah, like what you're saying there, I think, because for me, like when they play Brentford, they're going to be on the beach, and the other tough game they've got is Brighton. And to be honest, because Brighton lost on Saturday, that probably
Everton away.
Brighton. Yeah, but I think we've got a far harder run in than them.
Yeah, we do.
But I am clinging on to the fact that there might be a midweek Premier League game slotted in somewhere where maybe they're a little bit off it because they're a bit jaded, or they don't. The games are starting to come thick and fast. But I mean, City have shown the ability to win multiple trophies, like they've won the League Cup and Premier League in the same season before. So they're capable of doing that even then. But I'm hoping, because they're still in 3 competitions, that there might be a slip somewhere where maybe they get an unexpected draw. I mean, Everton do look like a team that's fighting pretty hard, for the manager in the shirt. So hopeful there, but I'm just not seeing how they played against Southampton in third gear and didn't really create a whole heap in the first half hour.
But I think
still ran out 4-1 victory. It's quite demoralising, to be honest.
I think Southampton, they know that they're beat already. They know that they're gone. I mean, the rest of the teams above them, I looked at the table earlier, and there's like 4 points between, I think it's 18th and 13th in the table. That's not a lot of points separating those teams. So all of those teams have got something to play for. There's, we're there's still a big chunk of the season left to go. So these teams could quickly get dragged into relegation battles.
I know, but I think one of City's hard games is against Brentford but that's on the last game of the season, and I guarantee you Brentford will be one of those classic on the beach teams. They won't be going for Europe anymore. They're starting to slip a bit down the table along with Fulham, and they're not going to be dragged into relegation. So
could be.
I would imagine that
before his ban. So
maybe you put a bet on it before and put a bet on himself to score a hat trick or something like that, and then go and do the business.
Yeah, hopefully. So
right, bold predictions. Let's review Ivan Toney's predictions. So last week, my prediction was Gabriel Martinelli would have at least one goal involvement at Anfield. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pleased to say that he blew that out of the water inside the first 10 minutes, setting up a goal and scoring. Your prediction was a 3-1 win for Arsenal.
Didn't quite come true.
Yeah, so you are on the hook for a tenner.
I'm a £10 in the kitty.
You're a tenner down. What's your prediction for the West Ham game then?
West Ham. What am I going to say? I think we'll win. I do. I think West Ham are all over the place. They can't get a goal for love nor money. And we are playing at the London Stadium. I think it'll be an efficient game. I don't think we're going to batter them. I'm going to say 2-0.
So you're going for the score?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple.
Okay.
If I could do a scorecast, maybe.
My prediction is that Arsenal will win by 2 or more clear goals against West Ham. I think we're going to need to respond. I watched West Ham against Newcastle the other night, and their defending was, quite frankly, it was a joke. So I'm going to put that we'll win by 2 goals. But I guess if we win 2-0, we've both got that right. So we'll have to see what happens in terms of charitable donation after that.
We're both allowed to sort of come up with.
Or maybe we'll both.
Maybe if this is 2-0 and we both sort of predicted it, then maybe, maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll put a. I don't know. We'll work it out.
We'll both cough out.
We'll both cough up or something. Something along those lines. So that's that. The Southampton game after that, and then we've got City away, the big one. That's when it all sort of. I think that's what it all boils down to, really, because I'm expecting us to beat West Ham and Southampton, and then it's City.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're just awful. We're just awful against them. I want to.
No, I know.
What was frustrating about the weekend is that way we started the game and the first half hour. Again, I go on about it, but it really did feel like the players were determined to shed all of that baggage. And I'm hoping that particularly with Zinchenko crying at the end, I'm hoping that they're not sort of being too hard on themselves, really, and sort of thinking, well, we can't do it. We can't do it against these teams from the Northwest away from home. So we need to. But I think if we get a good couple of victories on the board going into that game, it might be different. But again, for me, it is that game by game thing. We're not going to arrive at the City game in good shape if we get 4 points from our next 2 games. We've got to win now. We've got to respond. I mean, I think West Ham's not a bad game to come back to. I know it's a London derby, but the onus is on them to come and have a go. They're pretty weak defensively. I'm pretty confident we'll score. So it's and they're not that great going forward. Although obviously we've got to watch out for Jared Bowen and Paqueta and people like that. But I'm cautiously optimistic about them. I think they're not the West Ham of a year or 2 ago. So I'm hoping that we can go and get the business done.
Yep, absolutely. And that's
right.
I think that wraps up today's show. Thanks, everybody. If you're going to watch it, please leave us your comments and questions. Remember to hit the like and subscribe. And I guess we'll see you at the next game.
Absolutely.
See you later.
See you soon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.